Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm really excited today because my friend James is joining us all the way from the UK. So a little backstory. I had a virtual speaking engagement situation with you in 2020, but we've never met in person before. And I want to thank him for giving me that opportunity. I think that was one of my first public speaking engagements, especially during the COVID years.
You smashed it. You were amazing.
Thank you. So, James, can you tell us what you are doing in Indonesia?
Well, I'm here with you,
Yes.
and we're doing this work training other people with lived experience, other artists, on how we can break down stigma and discrimination using art, which we've been doing together.
Yes, we have, and we had a lot of fun. But unfortunately, we can't continue this conversation here in Indonesia. So let's go back to Ghana and UK to continue this conversation. You want to say any other thing before we go?
It's just a huge privilege to meet you in person
Okay.
because you're a massive inspiration.
Thank you. And I feel the same way about you. Not because you are my friend, I'm not being biased, but it's the truth, it's the truth. And I'm so glad that people like you exist in this world because the message of mental health needs to be heard every single day. So thank you.
And we'll chat online.
Yeah, always. Okay. Bye. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm in Ghana and James is back in the UK as you can see. So today we'll be talking with James. We are continuing our conversation from Indonesia and I have so many questions for James because I've always wondered what your story is. And ever since we met in 2020, we got to know ourselves for the first time. I have never really gotten to know your entire story. I just know that you have lived experience with a mental health condition and you also have a huge passion to help other people with lived experience with mental health conditions. And you are a very wonderful mental health advocate, very passionate. And so today I would like to know how it all started for you, your road to recovery. What really happened?
Wow, that's a that's a big question, S&M. Firstly, I miss you. It was so nice hanging out in Indonesia and getting to
Yeah,
know you. It was good times.
yeah.
Um, my journey, I think, like most people, began in my late teens.
Okay.
It began with feelings of anxiety, feelings of depression, and there's some history of that in my family. And when I grew up in a small town in the north of England, and I went to university in London, and moving to the big bad city, to the belly of the beast. You know, that wasn't good for my mental health, and that deteriorated very quickly. So that um, by the time I was 18, I ended up in a mental health hospital, and I was there for a year. And obviously, it's a long time to be in a hospital.
Yeah.
So, um, and then after that, coming out of that experience, I wasn't able to go back into education for a very long time, and had some struggles with homelessness, some difficulties with drug use, and really coming out of that experience, I started to make art. And that was really a way for me to make sense of my experiences, the wider world. This was the early noughties. So this was around the time of the British invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. And so that was also something, that was important to me, something I was really uncomfortable with in terms of our government's actions. So there's this kind of internal struggle going on for me, and then this bigger external struggle. So that's something that I've always like tried to link, is how are our internal struggles around our mental health and bigger external things impacting us, impacting our mental health. You know, it's something we spoke about when we were in Indonesia. And I really threw myself into my activism, but never really addressed my mental health struggles. And as the activism got bigger, perhaps got more stressful, more demanding, then that took a toll on my mental health. And by the time I was in my late 20s, I was back in hospital again, not in a good place, kind of. So, really, um, again, had to take a very long time out to sort myself out. And it was at that point that really my friends were like, hey, James, you know, you've done all this really great activism around climate change, around capitalism, and kind of how systems like the IMF are exploiting other countries and centering whiteness and all this kind of stuff. Like, but you've never really applied the activism to your own mental health. Maybe you should try that.
Yeah.
So that's really like in my early 30s. That's where really I began to think about my own mental health and started working with other people, thinking about how I could work in a more sustainable way, thinking about the impact of mental health care on myself and on the people that I've worked with and do work with, and so that's kind of a long journey to really think about that and really, you know, to kind of think about that, like actually how can supporting other people be really beneficial for your mental health, you know. And I know that's something that is really important for you, but there's something really healing in the act of supporting other people in their journey.
Okay. That's a very interesting story. And I know it wasn't just smooth like that. There were times that you would fall and rise, fall and rise. But
All the time.
yeah, as a man, like I don't know if it's like that in the UK, but in the African society, most men are not allowed to show emotions or express how they are feeling because you may be seen as a weak person or you're not man enough. Did you have that struggle coming out as a mental health activist? Did you encounter that? Did people tell you, oh, why do you want to come out and help other people? You should keep this thing private.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think particularly where I'm from in England, so I'm from the north of England, so that's predominantly the poorer part of England. It's a very working class culture, and definitely there, I was brought up in a in an environment where there was what I would call toxic masculinity. You know, there was this thing about like, you know, men don't cry, men don't like, you know, like my father would never say I love you. There was no like physical affection there. So I was definitely raised in that culture, but I think I've also, you know, I have really immersed myself in educating myself on feminism, educating myself on women's struggles. You know, I've got a lot of friends who are gay and lesbian and transgender. So I've been around a lot of different cultures where feelings are not seen as something to be frightened of. And I think what's really fascinating is in England, when you're in a mental health hospital, they divide it by gender. So often you can be in a hospital with lots of other men. And that's where it gets really fascinating, where you all know why you're there, right? You all know you're there for your mental health. And
Literally.
actually, some of the best mental health support I've had has come from other men, because there's an understanding of what it's like to be around that toxic masculinity that's like, man up, like boys don't cry. And actually, when you've hit bottom, like, boys do cry.
Mm.
And I think in England, the statistics are that suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 35. So, you know, I am aware we have that problem here. I'm aware that, in a lot of the work I do, it is predominantly women in these spaces. There's a lot of work to do in this area. But for me personally, I I think I had to reject that kind of form of masculinity quite quickly, because I wouldn't have survived if I hadn't have done the therapy, not be ashamed of who I am and what I've been through, and I guess find different approaches to masculinity that, like, as you know, I'm a dad now,
Yeah.
and I have a daughter, and I'm like, I'm not going to be ashamed of being affectionate with her and telling her I love her. And like, the feminist struggle is a struggle for men as well. Like, men need to change their behavior, just women need to call out that behavior from men. So I think I've been on a big learning curve around that, but I feel in a much better position, you know.
I'm happy to hear that. So we are looking at how many years of your road to recovery from your teens to your 20s. That's probably over 10 years.
I mean, S&M, I'm 43 now.
But
And
you don't look it. You don't
I'm
look it.
still having bad days. I think, like, maybe like you still have bad days, right?
Yeah, I do. Mm.
So I don't think this is something that ever leaves you, but it's like
You get stronger,
you get stronger, and
more
it's like,
resilient.
yeah, it's like grief. It's not like you ever you you always miss that person, but you get broader. Your shoulders get broader at holding the weight. So, like many people that have had mental health struggles, we get strong through our survival and through our community and togetherness. It's not just always on the individual, and you learn, like and you've had to, you learn about the things that are good for you, things that are bad for you.
Yeah.
You learn, like I've learned that sleep is really important. That, like, for myself, I've learned that exercise is really good because it makes my body and mind feel good. I've learned that, I don't really get drunk. That, that alcohol isn't good for me personally. So yeah, that's part of the journey, isn't it?
Okay. I'm glad that you are saying all these things because it's true. I just used to feel that there are some like the longer you are on your road to recovery, the more stronger you become, and sorry, the less likely you are to relapse because you've been on this journey for a long time. You know what's good for you and what
Hmm.
is good for you. So your support system, would you say they have really played a huge role on your road to recovery?
Um, I mean, the support system is the road to recovery,
Yeah.
like, without friendships, without my partner, without my family, I had therapy. I've talking therapy for 10 years, Esna, like,
Mm.
so long, like, so much work. For me personally, I personally found medication useful. I know not everybody does, but like that worked for me at times. I'm really lucky in that in England, it's we're losing it, but we still have this system of the state providing some financial support for disabled people. So I've had times where I haven't had to work, so that and that's a huge privilege.
I wish we had
Um,
in Ghana.
yeah, but you people like you will change that system over time.
Mm,
So for me, what's really important and what I'm always saying, like, as you know, I work a lot with young people now, and they'll always say to me, like, what's the trick to like getting better with your mental health? And I'm always like, it's not one thing. It's always a combination of things. It's like your faith, your routine, your family, your friends. Like you have to like work on all of these things all at the same time to like yeah. So yeah, like shout out to Lily, my partner, who's like been with me through some very dark times, like being sat on the sofa for 4 months and not feeling anything, and her like always being strong and sometimes not being strong, but like, yeah.
mm. I'm so happy that you have said it's not just one thing, it's a combination of things. Because people always think because this worked for someone, it would also work for me. It's not always like that. And I've always wondered, have you ever been stigmatized or discriminated because of your mental health condition? Because I'm sure you know about my story, how I got fired from my job. So I've always wondered, have you ever dealt with stigma or discrimination?
I mean, of course, like, um, I mean, I've been physically attacked coming out of a hospital, like that has happened. But I think I don't know if it's the same in Ghana, maybe it's different, but in England, like my friends who are global majority people of color, they talk a lot about microaggressions and racism. And I think for me, a lot of my experiences of discrimination around mental health are microaggressive. It's those little things of like, you know, um, when people expect me to be able to do things that a non-disabled person could do, and you'll have to explain like, this is difficult, or I can't work today, or like I'm not feeling so good, and you get that like people rolling their eyes, or like, not this again, or even down to like people not trusting you, or people being skeptical that like you can't do things, or people not understanding that your experience fluctuates because you have good days, you have bad days. So I think a lot of that that comes down to education. It's like
Yeah,
people don't know what it's like, or haven't been educated about what it's like, and often that education can fall on you. Like people expect you to educate them on your mental health. It's like that can like more work as well. So yeah, many incidents of big things, but I think also it's like often it's the little things that eat away at you that like
yeah,
affect your confidence, or like your ability to be in situations when you're not feeling confident, or you're just like you know
mm,
anxious or whatever. Yeah.
okay.
Does that
Um,
make sense? Is that the same for you? In like you get the
yeah,
big things, but also it's like the little.
yeah. I mean, when I was newly diagnosed, I mean, not everybody knew I had bipolar disorder. So, I mean,
But
when
S&M, they do now because you put it on your YouTube channel.
yes, oh yes, now now I can't hide. It's all over the place. But at the beginning, a lot of people didn't know, and even when they find out, they begin to wonder. Like they think you are always manic every day. So even if you are laughing or having a good time, they are very skeptical. Are you sure you are not manic? It became so serious that even when maybe I'm buying something for myself, something I really need, after buying maybe the shoe or the sandals, I'll keep pondering, ah, or did I buy it because I'm manic? Meanwhile, it's something I need, but because people have questioned my actions so many times, I have to also question myself. Or maybe somebody did something wrong to me. I remember some years ago, somebody offended me and I called the person out about it, and everybody thought, oh, I was manic. So when I came home for to Ghana for therapy, I spoke to my psychologist and she said, look, you have every right to be angry. Being angry doesn't mean you are manic, or because you have bipolar disorder you do not have any other human emotions. You have every right to express them. So don't allow people to put you in a box and say you
Mm,
can't do this, you can't feel this, and you will be fine. And she was right. Since then, I've just like tried to. Sometimes I even forget I have bipolar disorder because I don't think about it. I just
mm,
take my medication and live my life. I hardly think about it. You think because I'm a mental health advocate every day, that's what is on my mind, but
yeah.
that's not what is on my mind at all. Yes.
I mean, it's a really interesting observation you've made there about like what is your mental health and what is like quote unquote normal, and how in our internal dialogues do we distinguish between like, am I being judged here? La 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 la. Like, am I nervous about going into the situation, or am I anxious about it? And what's the difference, and where's the boundary between all of these things? It's really complicated to navigate that. And then sometimes you just don't think about it, like you say, and it's just like, yeah.
But with anxiety, I've always wondered, it must be really tough because I know that some of your symptoms are not just internal. Sometimes it can manifest like physically, like you could start, your heart can start palpitating and all of that. How do you handle that? Because I know some, like I used to have someone who was close to me who used to have those kind of panic attacks, and usually she would just withdraw, or if it means leaving the class she would leave immediately. And people would always think, no, you have to be strong, like you always give up, like stay there, face it, fight it. But I could really understand that it's not all the time that you can be there, face it and fight it. Mm.
I mean, for me, so my like panic attacks, my anxiety can be really, really intense. Like I've ended up in hospital with them. Like I've blacked out from hyperventilating, so where I can't breathe from it, you know. So and it's the kind of thing where people who've who've seen me have a very intense panic attack will be like, this is really real. Like this guy is gonna like stop breathing soon. It's like so um and you can get anxious about being anxious as well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that can be a thing as well. I've had like CBT training for like to manage it. So like I can do like meditation and breathing exercises. I carry medication with me everywhere I go. So if it gets really intense, I can, you know, take diazepam, which will reduce the anxiety. I know there are triggers for those for that anxiety to happen, you know, like traveling on aeroplanes. I'm not, which is why Zelda came with me to Indonesia,
Okay.
just like to help with
Those
that.
are long flights too.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it was even further from Accra than London, so like, um, and it's something, but it's like any like being really anxious. I guess it's like being really manic. It's something you learn to live with. It's something you learn
Yeah.
to manage. It can be, it's really fascinating, but because it can also be something, it can be a strength. Like there can be times where I can feel really anxious and I'm like, if I'm strong and I mean strong by listening to the anxiety rather than fighting against it, it could be that the anxiety is trying to tell me something, you know, that I don't feel safe or something. There's like bad energy around me or bad vibes or like, and I'm like, I need to listen to this because it's my body's telling me something and I need to respect my body. And sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, nah, nah, you're talking rubbish today. Like, I can do this thing. Like, I can push through this. But then other times, so like everything with mental health, it's complicated and it's difficult. But like, I think like you probably have to listen to your body, listen to your when you're feeling manic or
Yeah.
feeling depressed. Like, it's for a
Mhm.
reason. So you've got to listen to this and work through it.
Yeah, that's very true. Because sometimes, so with me, when I'm having a manic episode, I'm usually not, I don't realize something is happening. But prior to that, there's symptoms like insomnia. When I can't sleep, it makes me know, no, something is wrong. I need to like go to the hospital as soon as possible. In the past, I used to ignore it, and by the time I realized I have a full blown manic episode, or with depression too, sometimes I can tell. I realize I don't want to be around people. I'm withdrawing. I don't want to pick phone calls. I want to be in bed. So sometimes it's sometimes when I'm in my room and I stay in my room for long. My
Mm,
mother is the one who always starts freaking out. She will shout, "Are you okay? Are you fine?" And I've told her that the fact that I'm in my room does not mean I'm having an episode. Sometimes it's just one of those days, like I just want to be alone. It doesn't mean it's an episode. Me, myself, if it's an episode, I will even be more concerned than you are because I do not want to relapse. Sometimes
mm,
relapsing to me feels like you've been able to climb a mountain to a certain level, and all of a sudden, when you relapse, it's like falling and tumbling down. And now it becomes even more difficult to climb again because you are crushed, and sometimes you even feel bad. I mean, you've come this far, and it's like, how did this even happen to me? Somebody who has come this far, how did this happen to me? And sometimes because I go for therapy a lot, sometimes it's even, I know it's a bad thing to do, but sometimes when I'm struggling with something, I feel like if I tell my therapist, and especially because I'm a mental health advocate, it's like
mm,
I shouldn't be struggling with this thing. So I sometimes it's like I decide to choose what I tell her and what I don't tell her. But I think it's also wrong. No matter how far you have come on your journey, you shouldn't feel like, oh, there are certain things which are past me. I shouldn't be struggling with this thing anymore. Yeah. So it
mm.
can be an interesting journey. Yeah. So I don't want to take any more of your time, and I hope we'll continue this conversation in another video. Do you have any final words?
Um, I guess I want to come back to your point about masculinity and mental health. And, like, I don't think that's like, I have this perception of like men from Ghana, maybe men from Nigeria, that they're like quite strong, a little bit flashy, la 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 la. And I think like, I got to say to you, hey brothers, like listen to your sisters because they're smart on this. Like listen to your mothers, like they know. I think there's a lot that men can learn from women in terms of how we talk about our feelings, and like, I think maybe this is universal about men and masculinity and mental health and how we're raised and how boys are raised, and we aren't raised to talk about our feelings, and that it can be hard for men to open up about their mental health. But I think like, yeah, like it's really important to learn from women on this, and actually like our mothers, our sisters, we can learn so much from drawing on that feminist perspective of like healing and health and our minds and our brains. So this is a message for all of the men in Ghana. You've got to listen to S&M because she's queen. She's queen of mental health. So like
Yay.
she knows what she's talking about. So yeah, like that's the work, isn't it? That's the work that we've got to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, James, for coming on my channel and having this conversation with me. Hopefully, we can do it in person, like the whole video. Yes. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and I would put your all the links to all the work you have done in my description box so everybody can check it out and see what you have been up to. Thank you so much, James, and have an
Thank,
amazing day. Thank
thank you, S&M, for having me. So great to have this chat and to think about working with you in the future as well.
Amen. Amen. I say amen to that because I know there's a lot of work to be done, and sometimes I feel like we've done a lot. There's nothing, but I know in my heart that there's still so much that needs to be done, and it will help more people all over the world. Yes. So thank you for always thinking ahead and looking at the bigger picture. It's very inspiring. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, S&M. Bye bye. Bye bye.